tweeted at the time, which I didn't even... Oh, hi. Hello, and welcome to The Jib. This bi-weekly podcast is about the many and varied schemes of the many and varied U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies, organizations, and committees, and how they are stupid... and funny. Join us on our merry journey through space and time. Hi, my name is Barry, and you might know me as that weird sprinkler thing your mouth does sometimes for no reason. No?
Okay.
Let us know in the chat.
Oh, jeez. Hi, everybody. You may know me from such audiobook narrations as The Fear of Being Perpendicular, Celsius 232.778, and Godot Can Fuck Off.
Godot Can Fuck Off. The audio, but what's 232.778?
Instead of Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, you just picked a... Is it the same thing in Fahrenheit? Or?
Yes.
Oh. It's cool. It's updated for the modern times.
Right. Yeah. Shit.
Oh.
We're not here to talk about my voiceover work. So.
Oh no.
Or Godot.
About, Chile. Chile is a country in South America. It is a long ass country.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the
No. Later on. That's later on. Remember, we're gonna go to the place.
My notes are fucked up. Then okay.
Oh,
okay.
That's
all
okay.
right.
Don't worry. That'll be Chile.
Yeah.
This is Chile.
See, now you say it out loud.
Sorry.
I'm an audio guy.
Yes. It's your Celsius 2.
Yeah.
Chile is a long ass country. It's so long it would stretch from London to another place that was very far away. So we're going to talk about that and what happened in 1973 on September the 11th, on 9/11, 1973. So we're going to kick it off as I usually do with an unnecessarily detailed historical perspective. All right, so here we go. Chile exists. Also, Spanish conquistadores came to Chile in the 1540s in search of gold, but they stayed for the agricultural potential, an experience mirrored in several other South American countries. There was the typical infighting, fighting against local groups and fighting against other colonial powers, which ended in 1810 when Chilean revolutionaries declared an autonomous republic within the Spanish Empire. Predictably enough, this emboldened an outright independence movement led in part by Bernardo O'Higgins, who was only included here because of his amazing name.
Yeah, it sounds very Irish.
He's a cross between a Basque and an Irish, I guess. Bernardo O'Higgins. What a name. Okay. It reminded me of, do you ever see The Magnificent Seven?
Yes.
And Charles Bronson plays a character called Bernardo O'Reilly. And they're like, what's wrong? He says, my dad was Irish and my mom was Mexican, right? What about it? What are you doing? And he tries to train the kids how to use the guns. They fuck up so badly. He just says, hit him with the back of the gun. That's not about The Magnificent Seven, though. This is about Chile.
It's great that Hollywood, they can get a Hungarian guy to play a Mexican Irish guy.
Yeah, Eli Wallach is a Jewish guy, and he was playing a Mexican bandit. So,
old Hollywood was great.
Yeah, he got away with all sorts of things. And I think Eli Wallach played a Mexican in Manny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the old guy in the mountains in that movie, like the wise old man in the mountains. As far as I know, he's a Russian actor, but he was also playing a Mexican. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it. So.
Good movie. Go see Magnificent Seven if you haven't seen it. The music is kick-ass.
Mm-hmm.
In 1818, Chile was declared an independent republic. So I'm sure that's the end of it, right? Right? Yep. Yeah, that's the end of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, good. Good show. Thanks for joining us. 2 weeks. Lavender, part 3. No. Throughout the 1800s, Chile expanded its interests and was doing pretty well. In 1891, they had a civil war between their parliament and the navy on one side and their president and the army on the other, and the parliament won. Now, parts of this civil war, which involve the Americas. The Atata incident happened during this civil war. The parliament bought 5,000 guns in America and shipped them out of San Diego in a boat called the Atata. The American government was officially supposed to be on the other side, though, so they prevented the boat from leaving the harbor. The Americans thought that the guns were headed for a Chilean warship called the Esmeralda, so they sent their own warship called the Charleston after it. And both the Esmeralda and the Charleston ended up in Mexico, neither of them having encountered the Atata. So, right? The Atata made it to Chile. Yeah, the Atata made it to Chile, where a bunch of American cruiser warships were waiting for it. They managed to convince the boat to go all the way back to San Diego. I'm sure they did. to convince the boat to go all the way back to San Diego. A federal case against them was prepared by William Howard Taft, who would later be president, and investigated by Henry Gage, who would later be governor of California. Gage refused to forward any prosecution because the government had no case, and although Taft moved forward, he lost in the courts, which Gage predicted. The Baltimore crisis also happened during this Civil War. The crew of the U.S. warship Baltimore took shore leave at Valparaiso in the middle of Chile. It's a port right in the middle of that long-ass country, during which they were attacked by Chileans angry about the Atata incident. 2 U.S. sailors were killed and many others were wounded. Open war with the United States was a very real possibility, but eventually a deal was struck. The Chilean government agreed to pay the families of the 2 victims $75,000 as a part of that deal.
$75,000 back then
would have been a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, probably like
it'd cover your rent.
$7 million. Probably.
Yeah, it'd cover your rent forever. We'll put it that way. Which makes the money amounts we're going to talk about in a bit quite.
Yeah.
Now we're in the 20th century. By the 1920s, for the same reasons that we spoke about, there's a lot of this that's quite similar to our Guatemala episode and also our Iran episode, which you'll probably pick up on that. By the 1920s, American interests, with the complicity of the Chilean government, were in control of the economy. Just 2 American copper mining companies, which were called Anaconda and Kennecott, accounted for up to 20% of Chile's GDP. Today, Chile still accounts for 30% of the world's copper. Conditions on the ground for Chileans back then did not improve as profits for these companies skyrocketed. And by the mid-1950s, an organized labor movement was pushing for socialist policies.
Now,
thankfully, that can't happen anymore, where companies have skyrocketing profits, but the conditions on the ground for the workers deteriorate. That would never happen. Not in our modern world.
Amazon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah. But it's lots of companies, not just Amazon, right?
Oh, yeah. Tesla.
Yeah. Salvador Allende, the leader of the Socialist Party, ran for president in the 1952 general election. We have a photo of Salvador Allende with Fidel Castro, I think.
Yep.
That's him. He went to see Fidel Castro, and they were mates, I guess. So he was Castro was always a supporter of Allende's. He had the support of the Communist Party, but he only got 5% of the vote in the 1952 general election. That's rough. 5% is a bit. Well, I guess he recovered his deposit, perhaps because. The reason he might have gotten so little of the vote was because the Communist Party was banned in Chile at the time because they were pro-American, of course. He ran again in 1958 and he lost again with a more respectable 29% of the vote. There are dark rumors that he would have won, except for a rogue third candidate called the Catapilco. It's just what they called him.
Always blaming on the third party.
The curate Catapilco, who siphoned left-wing votes onto himself.
Of course.
They still use Catapilco.
Ralph Nader all over again.
Ralph Nader or Jill Stein. They still use Catapilco in Chile to describe a third candidate who splits the vote. That's just what they call them. The winner of that election, the 1958 election, was a guy called Jorge Alessandri. And he managed to secure $130 million from U.S. financial companies, the Treasury Department, and the IMF to keep the economy America-friendly. So already we have a lot of American interference in these things, right?
Very, very friendly then, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, our boy Allende ran again in 1964, representing a united front of left-wing groups on a campaign to nationalize the mining industry, which, again, this is all going to sound very familiar from our Iran episode and our Guatemala episode. He lost again with an on-trend 39% of the vote, right? So he's doing all right.
Yeah.
It later emerged that the CIA had spent $3 million supporting Eduardo Frei Montalva's campaign, the other guy.
What?
I know, yeah.
No.
In 1964, right? Mostly by pumping the radio and print media with a bunch of scaremongering gibberish about communism.
They don't do that now.
No, they would never do that now. It certainly didn't do it during like 90% of our episodes. For comparison, this was more money than Lyndon Johnson spent on his entire campaign in that same year.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
They spent more money on Eduardo Frei Montalva's campaign in fucking Chile than they did on their own guy.
Wow.
Frei was also promised $20 billion with a B from JFK's Alliance for Progress, right, which I am calling the legal wing of Operation Condor, which was a secret multi-level security and intelligence operation to destabilize the entire raft of South American socialist movements. Now, we talk about Operation Condor sometimes. This was basically, FUBELT was a part of Operation Condor. a lot of things we're going to talk about were a part of Operation Condor in our entire series. That's why we're not doing one episode in Condor, because it's each different country has a different experience of what Condor means.
It's kind of like FBI and the COINTELPRO. I mean, it's
like COINTELPRO.
Yeah,
you can't really do an episode of COINTELPRO because how would you even approach that unless you had 10 weeks and no job?
So next week we're starting now.
Yeah, that's for Lavender Scare 3. Yeah.
Oh,
the Alliance for Progress was itself criticized. The legal wing, by the way, none of the shady stuff. The Alliance for Progress was itself criticized because in almost all cases, the money extracted by American companies from any particular country exceeded any financial aid provided to that country. So a cynical person would say that was what it was for, but
it's also, those fucking shady ass names that they use. It's,
the Alliance for Progress.
Yeah, it's like, come on. It's like it's bad enough you're fucking us, and then you're like pretending you're doing something good for us. Oh, it's just so evil.
We're promoting your economies. Yeah, thanks. You're basically getting us more stuff to give to the Americans. Yeah. Anyway, by the time the 1970 general election rolled around, our boy Allende is still knocking around here. The U.S. State Department was very worried. All right. The State Department laid out their usual menu of propaganda, intimidation, and funneling cash to pro-American candidates and organizations with an operation they called Track 1. There was 2 tracks. This was Track 1. Nevertheless, on the 4th
that's the A side and the B side?
Yeah, the B side is it's like a Pink Floyd album. Cool. So the A side is like, oh, la, la, la. The B side is this fucking intense half-an-hour jam, Yeah. But that was Track 1. Nevertheless, on the 4th of September 1970, Allende won the election with 37% of the vote. Wow. Just clipping past ex-president Jorge Alessandri. Now, the numbers people in the people listening to this might be wondering what happened there. How come he gets less of the vote and ends up winning? Trust me, it happens all the time in PR. Now, on the 8th of September, now this was the 4th of September, right? On the 8th of September, Henry Kissinger held a meeting where he declared that we will not let Chile go down the drain. And he also said, now this is the classic quote that you told me about this quote.
Oh, yeah.
I would say years ago. And I was saying, he hardly said it directly in those words. And you said, no, I did. So he also said, I don't see why we need to stand by and watch a country go communist due to the irresponsibility of its people. The issues are much too important for the Chilean voters to be left to decide for themselves.
Out there to fucking open, man. Yeah.
We hate democracy. Like, he's just saying, you can be democratic as long as you vote our way. That's not democracy. Yeah, that's something else, right? But because he got elected, because he won the election, Track 1 had failed. It was now time for the CIA to take over. The CIA had nothing to do with Track 1. It was just State Department. It was now time for the CIA to take over with Track 2, Operation FUBELT. And I have called this episode Operation FUBELT because I like the idea that all my episodes are called Operation something, but Operation FUBELT is just a small part of this. It would take a few weeks from the election of Allende for him to be constitutionally confirmed as president, right? On the 15th of September, Nixon, who had called Allende a son of a bitch, gave the order. Nixon calling you a son of a bitch doesn't really mean much, does it?
Yeah, no, that's kind of a term of endearment sometimes.
Must be Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
According to a declassified document from the NSA, the handwritten notes from CIA Director Richard Helms. Now we have the handwritten notes here in an image, I think.
Do you want that now?
Yes, please. Now, these are the actual handwritten notes from the CIA Director Richard Helms. And because he has handwriting is shit, I'm going to read it out for you, right? So follow along with me. It's like this when you're in school, follow along with me. Right? 1 in 10 chance perhaps, but save Chile, ! Worth spending. Not concerned, indecipherable. I don't know what that says after not concerned. No involvement of embassy on line 4, line 5. $10 million available, more if necessary. Oh, it'll be necessary. Full-time job, best men we have. And the next line says game plan. And the next line says make the economy scream. Which I think was the famous quote from that particular document, was make the economy scream. That was their plan from the start. And 48 hours for plan of action. They had to move fast because the plan was to do something before he got confirmed as president, but after he got elected. The immediate goal of Operation FUBELT was to instigate a coup by pro-American generals at any cost before he was confirmed. The subsidiary goal was to plan economic, political, and psychological warfare tactics to create a climate in which this coup could survive and thrive, right? Perhaps the stupidest part of this plan was the kidnapping of Renee Schneider, the commander of the army with his classic Spanish name there. We had O'Higgins, another Spanish Latin name. This is Rene Schneider, whose political affiliations made it obvious he would never support a coup against Allende. Rene Schneider was the commander-in-chief of the army at the time.
Okay.
The CIA paid General Robert Vio, General Camilo Valenzuela, and Admiral Hugo Tirado $50,000 to kidnap Schneider and replace him with someone more America-friendly. The idea was that this person, whoever they got to replace him, would then declare martial law, blame Allende supporters for the kidnapping, and declare the election fraudulent, and then take over as a military coup. Right? That was the plan. On the 16th of October, in between, this is the timeline, right? A CIA telegram to their Santiago branch, Santiago is the capital of Chile, stated, "It is firm and continuing policy that Allende be overthrown by a coup. It would be much preferable to have this transpire prior to 24th of October, I'm sure it would, but efforts in this regard will continue vigorously beyond this date. We are to continue to generate maximum pressure towards this end, utilizing every appropriate resource. It is imperative that these actions be implemented clandestinely and securely so that the USG and American hand be well hidden."
So let me put it all in writing for you.
Put them all on writing for you. So now these are all secret operations. They know they're secrets. They know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. They're not even pretending about democracy anymore. They know exactly why they're doing it. They're defending American money. That's what they're doing in the shape of copper mines. Like this is essentially what was happening in Iran, but it was with oil, and with Guatemala it was bananas, which sounds ridiculous. Try saying, like, they basically came, no, we're going to take your bananas. We want your bananas and we're going to take them. And it sounds ridiculous to say that out loud, but that's what caused that whole mess in Guatemala.
Well, you can't say there's no bananas today.
No, we have no bananas today. On the day of the kidnapping plan, the kidnapping of this Rene Schneider character, which was the 22nd of October, 1970, the three amigos shot Schneider dead, presumably by accident. Yeah.
Oops,
well, the CIA not only gave them $50,000, it also gave them 3 submachine guns. Presumably by accident, they shot him. I'm guessing by accident. The following day, Kissinger dismissed the entire Chilean armed forces as a pretty incompetent bunch. It was a bit rich coming from him, but anyway.
Yeah.
The news of the botched kidnapping and subsequent murder of Schneider had very much the opposite to the intended effect, and support for Allende skyrocketed. He immediately set about, he was confirmed, in other words, as the president, Salvador Allende, or Boy Allende. He immediately set about enacting his Via Chilene al Socialismo, which is the Chilean way to socialism. This included nationalizing the copper mines, which, good idea, the banks and the government, and setting up government-run healthcare and education. And also there was a land redistribution program, as there always is with these extremely socialist guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Under the early stages of his leadership, inflation fell. Inflation, which was rolling at about 30%, by the way. Inflation fell and wages went up. Wow. This was all terrible news for the Americans. Right? After Operation FUBELT blew up in their faces, almost literally, they decided to pour even more resources into destroying Allende, like the CIA cable said they would. The CIA kept pumping money into propaganda, maintaining military contacts, and secretly funding opposition leaders. On the 29th of June, 1973, they thought they found their moment. Tanks, in other words, this was going for 3 years. Tanks from the Chilean army. Yeah, tanks from the sorry, I'm Irish, so when I say tanks, it sounds like I'm saying thanks, right? Because we say dis, dash, D's and does, and thanks very much. Irish accent. Tanks from the Chilean army under Lieutenant Colonel Roberto Super fired on government buildings, including the presidential palace in central Santiago, killing 22 people. Damn. The commander-in-chief of the army, a guy who by now was a guy called Carlos Prats, put down the coup in under a day. This was called El Tanquetazo in Chile, the tank putsch, right? Regular viewers of our little podcast may remember our episodes on Guatemala and Iran, where a failed coup did nothing at all to stop the CIA from destroying a democratic government and installing a fascist dictator, and why should Chile be any different?
Yeah.
In every single one of those cases, there was a failed coup at the start, and I don't know why this is the pattern, but it always seems to be the pattern. We have a photo there of Allende and a Pinochet, right?
This one here?
Oh yeah, look at that. That's Pinochet on the left there.
Yeah.
Wearing his classic light reduction glasses, which I wish I had.
Yeah.
On the 23rd of August, 1973, Allende appointed Augusto Pinochet commander-in-chief of the army in the belief that he was loyal to the government. And a few weeks later, he took over the country.
Oopsies.
Yeah. But we haven't had one of these in a while, Seamus. But now we have an ad break.
Do you want the photo left up there?
Might as well, actually. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. This is our ad break, and this, of course, we got €10 for this. So, you ready? Okay. Experience the South Pacific like never before. Are you ready for a helicopter tour that will leave you breathless, literally? Join us for an exclusive, once-in-a-lifetime adventure through Chile's stunning landscapes and a few hundred miles over the ocean. All bought and paid for by the Dirección de la Television Nacional, DINA. Right? Secret police. Soar above the majestic Andes and glide across the magnificent Atacama Desert with the finest military pilots, trained to make sure you see the landscape from every angle. Don't worry if there are sudden drops and unexpected turns. What's an adventure without a few surprises? On the official DINA tours, you will visit secret locations that are off limits to the general public. Even the most hard-nosed human rights agencies don't know exactly where our helicopters go. I mean, they have a general idea, but they don't know exactly. Furthermore, we can guarantee that your trip will be as confidential as our operations. What happens in the air stays in the air. Book your final flight today, and don't forget your swimwear.
Well, I mean, do you really stay in here the whole time? I mean,
there's surprises that we can't discuss all along. Helicopter tours go. I mean, that's the way to see Chile by helicopter, you know?
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like that scene out of Scarface, you know?
Dirección de la Inteligencia Nacional.
Yeah.
Okay, Dirección de Inteligencia Nacional. Don't ask me why I'm using a Valencian accent when I could just go Castilian. We don't live in that world.
No.
Anyway, that's our ad. €10 is €10, right?
That's it.
And don't be afraid to use the super chat. We have no idea how to promote ourselves. Anyway, let's talk about the coup. Yeah. This coup was successful. This is how the coup went. On the 11th of September at 6 a.m., Valparaiso, which you will remember from before, was captured by the Chilean Navy. I'm sure it didn't take much effort. Allende immediately heard this, went to his palace with a security detail. But to him, this was just a minor incident. He didn't really get that this was the end of him. By 8 a.m., that was 6 a.m., by 8 a.m., the army had shut down most of the radio and television stations. Never a good sign, right?
Yeah.
And the Air Force bombed the remainders. By this stage, the regular police, the Carabineros, had joined Allende in his palace in central Santiago. By 8:30, half an hour later, the armed forces declared they had control of the entire country except one building in the middle of Santiago where Allende was sitting with the police.
Wow.
By 9 a.m., the police left, leaving Allende alone with his personal bodyguards, and he refused to surrender. Now,
hey, we'll see you later.
Yeah. Well,
good luck.
I mean, they could smell the wind, I guess. Now, there was many efforts to get this guy to surrender, Allende, and like Arbenz in Guatemala, he refused. Now, Arbenz eventually agreed. Allende never agreed. At 10:30, he gave his farewell speech, and this is his farewell speech. Workers of my country, I have faith in Chile and its destiny. Other men will overcome this dark and bitter moment when treason seeks to prevail. Keep in mind that much sooner than later, the great avenues will again be opened through which will pass free men to construct a better society. Long live Chile. Long live the people. Long live the workers. Good for him, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
For a man who knows he's going to die, like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
At 2 p.m., Allende dismissed his entire security detail, told them to surrender, went upstairs and shot himself.
Oh, wow.
So that was the coup. Pinochet immediately set about a brutal campaign of oppression and murder, mostly with the coordination of his secret police, DINA, which are running the helicopter tours, run by Manuel Contreras, or how do you pronounce it? Contreras, is it? Contreras, something like that.
Yeah.
Thor Halvorsen, not a traditional Latin name. Thor is a Greek name, though, isn't it? Thor.
It is.
Thor Halvorsen, president of the Human Rights Foundation at the time, said he shut down he's talking about Pinochet. He shut down parliament, suffocated political life, banned trade unions, and made Chile his sultanate. His government disappeared 3,000 opponents, arrested 30,000, torturing thousands of them. Pinochet's name will forever be linked to the desaparecidos, the caravan of death, and the institutionalized torture that took place in the Villa Grimaldi complex.
Wow.
Right? This sentence is not particularly nice, okay? Sexual torture, such as the insertion of rats into genitals and rape.
Okay, there. Yeah.
Were common in DINA detention centers.
Oh. No.
Were common in DINA detention centers. DINA is as I said before, is the security, the secret police. Detainees were it gets better, don't worry. Detainees were forcibly immersed in vats of shit and occasionally forced to eat it, which is still better than the fucking rats in my view.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So
give me a bowl full of shit, man. That's fine. Just keep the rats out of my asshole. That's fine.
Beatings,
yeah. Oh, this is good. Oh, look, a little bit of hair in it. You know, isn't that great?
Yeah.
We'll sit down. Thank you.
Waiter, excuse me, garçon. And going back to Bernardo O'Reilly, the Magnificent Seven, beatings with gun butts, fists and chains were routine. Why'd you beat someone with a chain, man? One technique was known as the telephone, and it involved the torturer slamming his open hands hard and rhythmically against the ears of the victim until the detainee was deaf.
Oh, wow.
At Via Grimaldi, prisoners were dragged into the parking lot and had the bones in their legs crushed as they were run over with trucks.
Yikes.
And these guys now would be political opponents. They wouldn't be like criminals or anything, you know? They're just political prisoners because they're union organizers and so on. Some died from the torture, unsurprisingly. Prisoners were beaten with chains and left to die from internal injuries. Oh, is that why you beat with them chains? Because it causes internal injuries?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Following execution, corpses were interred in secret graves, dropped into rivers or the ocean, or just dumped on urban streets in the night.
Yeah, dumping them on the street sends a message. I mean,
it does. But then, I mean, if you're going to rent a helicopter and go out a few hundred miles to the sea and drop a guy in there, that also sends a message. Because those things are expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, if nobody knows about it, I mean, if you take somebody with you to witness it and, you know, tell everybody about it, then that's worth it.
Somebody must have known about it, or we wouldn't know about it. Have you heard where the helicopters are going?
Unless they knew about it afterwards, I don't know.
I've seen the helicopters. They're the weirdest thing. They just go straight out into the sea and come back in again after, like, what's that about? Anyway, let's ask Pinochet. Let's not. In 1990, after many failed attempts to arrange another coup, Pinochet was more or less forced to hand over to the winner of the 1989 general election, a guy called Patricio Aylwin. His tenure, Pinochet's tenure, had been the longest-lasting dictatorship in South American history. Shortly before giving up power on September 15th, 1989, Pinochet prohibited all forms of abortion. Which I just threw in there because that's like the fascist dream.
Yeah.
The fascist dream is banning all abortion under any circumstances. In 1998, Pinochet, the true friend of Margaret Thatcher, there she is, was arrested in England on charges. Maggie, there she is, in charges of genocide and terrorism that include murder. He was held under house arrest and eventually released on medical grounds by the Home Secretary of England in violation of a decision by the House of Lords to extradite him to Spain to face human rights charges. Margaret Thatcher actually sent him gifts and went out to visit him all the time when he was under house arrest.
I remember there being a little bit of concern by some people about this.
Well, absolutely there was, yeah.
Hank was a little worried about this.
The entire Tony Blair government wasn't happy about it. And Tony Blair is not what you'd call, you know, he had his own troubles in that area.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but Jack Straw was the name of the Home Secretary who completely went against the House of Lords.
Good for him.
And they sent him off, but eventually they just sent him back home to Chile against the extradition order. As soon as he landed in Santiago, remember he was sent back home for medical reasons. Right. He was in a wheelchair and he couldn't walk and blah, blah, blah. As soon as he landed in Santiago, in full view of the assembled crowd, he just got out of his wheelchair and walked confidently around the tarmac, greeting friends and family. And he had a walking stick, but basically, I think that was a fuck you to anybody's attempt to arrest him. Can't be sure, but that's how I did. There's footage of this, by the way. If you want to Google Augusto Pinochet arriving in Chile, there's footage of him just coming off the airplane in his wheelchair, getting up out of the wheelchair and just going to talk to people. It's grim business. In 2000, the year, an amendment to the Intelligence Authorization Act sponsored by New York Representative Morris Hinchey, and I looked up Morris Hinchey's Wikipedia page, and apparently this guy is so awesome that this thing here he did here isn't even on his Wikipedia page.
Oh, wow.
He forced the CIA, well, not him, but the amendment to the act, forced the CIA to declassify documents relating to the Chile coup, which they did. In their own report, the CIA concluded that a review of the CIA's files has uncovered no evidence that CIA officers and employees were engaged in human rights abuses or covering up any human rights abuses in Chile. Right. CIA agent Anya Guilcher said, "We were aware of coup plotting in 1973, but we did not instigate it." Now,
right.
technically, that could be true in a very, very narrow technical sense. But if you, in the sense of, it depends on what you mean by instigated. Like if you create an environment where, anyway, the report itself revealed that the CIA supported the Renee Schneider kidnapping, that they paid $35,000 after the failure of the kidnapping, which turned into a murder. They paid $35,000 to the 3 boys they hired in what they called to keep the prior contact secret, maintain the goodwill of the group, and for humanitarian reasons. What they mean is they want to keep these guys on staff, basically on CIA payroll, in case they want to do another coup, right?
Right. So the CIA was like the Winston Wolf to Jules and Vince Vega after they off somebody's head.
Yeah. Keep them on retainer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if you call that instigating a coup. Technically, it's not. But, I mean, you're kind of playing with language at that point.
Yeah.
And they also admitted, in this same report where they said they didn't instigate a coup, they also admit making a payment to Manuel Contreras, as we said, the head of the secret police, DINA. He was sentenced in 1993 for killing Chilean socialist leader Orlando Letelier in Washington in 1976. Contreras always claimed that the CIA was behind that assassination. And we have no reason to suspect he's lying. Why would he lie about that? This same report also describes CIA propaganda efforts to support Pinochet, including support for news media committed to creating a positive image for the military junta. This is the same military junta that we know is guilty of thousands of extrajudicial murders, right? It was further claimed by the US that if interference had occurred, Nixon was unaware of it. However, this was not in the report. However, a prominent CIA agent directly involved in the Chile coup said, I sent CIA headquarters a special type of top secret cable known as a critic, which is CRITIC, I assume stands for something, which goes directly to the highest levels of government. So Nixon was getting regular updates on exactly what was happening the whole time.
I mean, nothing went on without him knowing in that fucking White House. You know
well, I would say in a real sense, he ordered it to happen.
Yeah.
Also, the Church Committee report said that Church Committee is where I get 90% of the data here. It's kick-ass. The Church Committee report said that the covert United States actions in Chile in the decade between 1963 and 1973 was extensive and continuous. While a separate 1975 report, nothing to do with the Church Committee, found that the CIA had received a direct instruction from Nixon to attempt to foment a coup.
No. Shocking.
Yeah. All right. On 10th of September 2001, a day before America's own 9/11 drama, the family of Renee Schneider filed a suit against Henry Kissinger, accusing him of collaborating in arranging Schneider's kidnapping, which resulted in his murder.
We throw Hank up right now. I just want to look at Hank.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Henry Kissinger and Augusto Pinochet.
Yeah.
The case was dismissed by a U.S. district court, citing separation of powers, and the actual quote is, the decision to support a coup of the Chilean government to prevent Dr. Allende from coming to power and the means by which the United States government sought to effect that goal implicate policymakers in the murky realm of foreign affairs and national security, best left to the political branches. Now, what they're saying basically is that it's not the job of the judicial branch to decide these things, because they were executive decisions, and that's the executive branch and maybe the legislative branch. So the judge is saying, well, it's not his. He doesn't have the power to make a decision, even if he knows they're right. Yeah. And that's that is a position that is backed up by Department of Justice tradition, if not the Constitution itself, right? Yeah. Although he could have just said, sure, yeah, fuck you, Kissinger, and nobody would have blinked. But that's the way he went. In 2006. Pinochet died without having been convicted of any of the crimes of which he was accused. In 2011, Chile itself launched its first investigation into the death of Salvador Allende, whose body was found in the presidential palace during the coup. Allende's remains were exhumed and subject to an international team of experts. This team of experts concluded that the former president had in fact shot himself with an AK-47 assault rifle. Now, as much as it would suit me to say that like something else happened, every source I can find agrees that he definitely shot himself with his own AK-47, and that AK-47, that particular rifle, was given to him as a present by Fidel Castro.
Oh, there you go.
So if you want to call that symbolism, I guess. So what's happening now? Well, apart from the copper mentioned above, in 2019, Chile was the world's largest producer of iodine and rhenium. Rhenium, R-H-E-N-I-U-M. Rhenium is one of the world's rarest metals, and it's used in jet engines. Chile is the second largest producer of lithium, which is used for electric cars and mobile devices, and molybdenum, which is hard for me to pronounce because it's a Greek word, molybdenum, which is used in electronics. Chile is the sixth largest producer of silver and the seventh largest producer of salt in the world. So I'm sure they'll just be left alone to their own devices with all those fucking essential chemicals and materials that they have just sitting in the ground. I'm sure that's the end of it.
Yeah. With lithium, definitely, or, biting at the bit to swing some things down there. It's no doubt.
Yeah. As long as the guy's pro-American, they won't care.
Yeah.
So I guess what's in the news?
Oh, is it time for that?
I think so.
All right.
Just change that to what I say. Okay. Just before every podcast, I put CIA into Google and Seamus puts FBI into Google, and we hit the news tab and we find current hilarious stupid shit that both the CIA and the FBI are up to. We haven't told each other what these stories are, so we're hearing them for the first time, just like you schlubs. Okay, Seamus, do you have FBI business?
Yes. An audit finds notable security gaps in FBI storage media management. And the three key findings are summarized as follows. The FBI does not adequately track or account for electronic storage media, such as internal hard drives, thumb drives, once they're extracted from large devices, which increase the risk of these medias being lost or stolen.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI fails to consistently label electronic storage media with the appropriate classified levels, IG, like secret, top secret, level, which could lead to mishandling and unauthorized access to sensitive information. The OIG also observed insufficient physical security at the FBI facility where media obstruction occurs. This includes inadequate internal access controls, unsecure storage of media awaiting destruction, and non-functioning surveillance cameras, as well as heightened the risk of classified information being compromised. So that's kind of funny, I think. So,
next up, when you need them.
Right. Next up, according to LA Times, inmate grazed by ricochet bullet from FBI target practice near LA jail.
Oh dear!
Why the fuck are they shooting near a fucking jail? That just makes no fucking sense.
Because no one gives a shit.
Incident happened August 9th when the inmate, who has not been identified, was on a porch outside the inmate housing barracks at the detention center, according to LA County Sheriff's Department. The inmate reported the incident to the jail staff, who discovered several vehicles also being struck by bullets. What the fuck?
Whatever target practice they're doing, it's not working.
Yeah. Let's see. The San Francisco Standard. Man stole grenades, ballistic vests from FBI van and traded it for meth in San Francisco.
Traded it for meth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Good.
So their security is really good there. Just saying. U.S. investigates Americans who worked with Russian state television.
Okay.
So they raided the homes of a couple of folks that worked for them. I'm not going to mention names. One is a guy that people try to prop up, and he's a fucking sexual predator.
Does it say that there?
I know who they're talking about. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. I don't want to bring up the guy's name because he's a piece of shit. People try to prop him up for no goddamn reason. It pisses me off. Anyways, that's what I got. So
okay. What would you like to hear mine?
Yeah.
Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns, William Burns. Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns this week.
Kosovo.
Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns, William Burns. Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns this week.
It doesn't get old.
No, it doesn't get old, does it? It's good. Yeah, William Burns is in Kosovo. Persian Deche to all my Albanian friends. There has been no confirmation of Burns' visit to Kosovo from the U.S. Embassy in Pristina, the Kosovar Presidency, or the Interior Ministry. But in the page I'm looking at, which is on Radio Free Europe, there is an actual photo of him entering the Kosovar Presidency. So I'd say what wants to talk about, the guy in charge of Kosovo is a guy called Albin Kurti. He's the leader of Vetvendosia, self-determination party. But every so often Serbia gets a bit, saber rattly with Kosovo, and Serbia is pretty much the only country in Europe that is really aligned with Russia.
Okay.
And all the other countries are kind of aligned with the EU or with themselves or with, with Serbia's aligned with Russia, and they kind of depend on that diplomatic relationship. And it's kind of screwing up a lot of stuff in the Balkans. The whole Balkans are being screwed up by Serbia again. So that's where he was. He might have been doing some good for a change. Also,
come on. You're giving way too much.
Well, I mean, I'm all against American interventions and American bomb in foreign countries, but my God, they stopped the genocide. Bill Clinton and Tony Blair, for all their crimes, stopped the genocide by bombing Belgrade. And they should have bombed the fuck out of Belgrade 2 years beforehand.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that. I also have Mafia Spies recounts the CIA plot to kill Castro.
Ah, nice.
In our Castro episode.
Yeah.
It's called Mafia Spies, and it tells the bizarre but true story of the CIA's various schemes to use the mob to assassinate the leader of Cuba, which I will have covered bits of that in our Operation Mongoose episode, which you should definitely check out if you want to have a laugh at the expense of the CIA's attempts to kill Castro. And another one is Qatar's intelligence chief receives a CIA award for security cooperation. CIA director cites Abdullah bin Mohammed al-Khulafi's role in advancing intelligence work between the two countries. Now, some of these countries out there are basically just American satellites, and Qatar is one of them, Kuwait's another one. Qatar's top intelligence official has been awarded a medal from the CIA for his role in strengthening intelligence cooperation with the United States. Good for Abdullah bin Mohammed al-Khulafi. Right? Good for you, buddy. And that is all I have.
Wow.
Which means that's our show, I guess.
Yeah, I fucked up last time, obviously, and said we were doing FBI. That was my fault. So
it was also
we're doing it next week
because I didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. That's all right. So we'll probably do FBI next week. Also, thanks for everybody checking out the Founding Feckheads. We're getting a lot of good feedback from that. So
and despite the viewing numbers, we will be doing another one.
So we will be doing one soon. So
maybe
probably not next week, but you never know. So
no, next week is the Lavender Scare Part 3.
God damn it, Barry. No, it's not the Lavender Scare.
It might be.
So, but anyways, that's our show,
Thanks
folks.
for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.